Hello, this is Ken McCrate, and if you're one of my students in my class, in my math class, these weren't really covered in our class, so what I've done is I'm going to create this video for you to help you understand it. This would be found on page 215 in the math book, and it is just basic trig. And oftentimes what happens is that the students, they read too much into this. So let's just give it a go and see if I can help you to understand this math a little bit better. So the first thing you want to do on any math problem is you always want to find the 90-degree angle. So let's take a look at this first one here, this first math problem. We're going to do all four of these, but let's take a look at this first one here, and we'll go from there. So finding the 90-degree angle on this, we're going to start right here at this point. I'm going to take it and bring it straight across here like this. Okay, and connect it to this spot right here. And then I'm going to come up, and if I come straight up, that creates a 90-degree angle, right? And then I'll bring it back down, and there we go. We've got the 90-degree angle. We don't want to try to find this inclusive angle. The inclusive angle, when I talk about an inclusive angle, that means the angle, the total of both angles. We want to just find just the one angle that's based off of this 90 degrees that's down here. Now we know two things about this. We know that we've got the 1.5 inches. That's this distance straight across, right? Because this says that the distance from here to here is 1.5. And we know that we've got 750 thousandths as a total, but we're not going from the total amount. Remember, this tip is going to come straight up. It's going to come to the center point. So we're going to go and we're going to solve for this based off of half of the distance, right? So it's going to be this distance from here. So we've got 375 thousandths from this line to this line. So what we have now is two dimensions. We have 375 thousandths and we have 1.5. So I'm going to redraw this angle so that it's bigger so that you can kind of see what we're going to do with it. So what we have here, again, now I've just taken everything that we had over here and I've made it over here. So we have 375 thousandths. Again, that's going to be 1/2 of what this is here, right? This is 750 thousandths. Half of 750 is 375. Remember, we drew this line right here. We know that we've got 1.5 inches going straight across. Don't be mistaken by taking this line here and thinking that this line here is 1.5 inches. That is not. That's a hypotenuse. Remember, this line's going straight up. It projects straight up, and this line projects straight up. It's not tilt out like this. If it was tilted out like this, that would be the hypotenuse. That would be the line going that way, okay? So you want to follow that. You want to make sure that you got that. So that's wrong. That would be wrong if you figured that as the 1.5 inches. So we got the 1.5 inches dimension right here. So we have two sides. We have an adjacent side, which is the 1.5 inches, and we have the opposite side. Well, remember what I taught you in the other courses before. You want to set up your trig functions, and always set them up, because I always set them up. I always write them down. I always have them handy. And let's take a look at what that would look like. So we're looking at opposite side and hypotenuse side, adjacent side and hypotenuse side, and opposite side and adjacent side. So what does that mean? That means you have to match one of these three. This one, or this one with what you have. So what do I have? I have an opposite side here. Okay, so, well, that would match right there. And I have an adjacent side here. Well, that one's not going to make it because this one would be for the sine. That would be if I had this distance here, this hypotenuse here. I don't have this hypotenuse here, so I can't use that one. Sine's out. Okay, so I have an adjacent side. All right, great. We got this 1.5 that we can use. Remember, this is going to be adjacent. Why is it adjacent? It's adjacent because it's next to the angle that you're looking for. And this is the opposite side because it's opposite the angle that you're looking for. So, bottom line is, okay, I got an adjacent side here. That's this one right here. Oh, no, I've got a hypotenuse again. Doggone it. That would be this side here. So guess what? That's not going to work. So we're going to go on to the next one. We're looking for an opposite side here. Oh, okay, I've got an opposite side. 3 inches, 750 thousandths. But I need an adjacent side. Oh my goodness, I got an adjacent side right here. It's a 1 inch, 500,000. So all you're going to do now is put these numbers right where they belong, right where they go, right there. So, all right, so let's bring this over to here. I'm going to make this, now this 375 thousandths on the top, the 1.5 on the bottom, and it's going to equal the tangent. Well, it's not quite that easy, but we'll see how that works in a second. So, if I take 375 thousandths and I divide it by 1.5, okay, so 375 divided by 1.5, that's going to give me the decimal equivalent of what the tangent would be. And you're going to come up with 250 thousandths. Well, that's not your answer. Well, it is kind of, but it's not really. 250 thousandths is the decimal equivalent of the tangent of that angle. So you have to hit your INV key. It could be your second key on your calculator, just depends on what you've got. Okay, your INV key or your second key, and then your tangent key. And you're going to come up with a number, something like, hang on a second, I'll tell you what it's going to be. 14.03624 degrees, decimal degrees, 13.036 or 14.03624. That's decimal degrees. So what that means is I have this angle here, but this is in decimal degrees. We want to know what the degrees, minutes, and seconds are, but you do not want to do that until you take that and you multiply it times 2. Why times 2? Because we've got it over here, and we have it over here. This is the inclusive angle. So when you take this and multiply it times 2, gives you 28 degrees, 0.0724 decimal degrees. Then what you want to do is you want to hit your DMS-DD key. Oh no, I'm sorry. You want to hit your DD key, okay, dash DMS key. All right? Look on your calculator. You should find it. You should be able to see a DD-DMS key. When you do that, it's going to convert this to about 28 degrees, 4 minutes, and like 21 seconds, something like that. So you're going to come up with the answer here of 28 degrees, about 4 minutes, and about 21 seconds. Now, don't freak out if you got something that's just a little bit off on this thing. No big deal if you're off a few seconds, all right? Just get the math problems, get the way that you work these. Don't worry about the small things in life, all right? So that's the first problem. Again, the key to this is you want to go for what you know. And you also want to find a 90-degree angle. It's as simple as that. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so now moving on to this next one. What they're looking at here is they want to find out what this length here. They're looking for a surface here, and I've got an angle, and I've got a side, but how do I know what this is? Well, first thing you want to do is go for what you know, as usual. You know that you've got 950 thousandths right here, okay? It says that it's 950 thousandths, and you know that you've got 60 degrees right there. Now remember, you want to find the 90 degrees. That's not a 90 degrees inside here from here to here. That's an inclusive 60 angle. Inclusive means both sides, both of these angles combined, included, put together. It's inclusive. Means that it is a total of 60 degrees. So if it's a total of 60 degrees, you would want to create half of that. So you're going to take and you're going to draw a line over here like this. You're going to draw it like this, and you're going to draw it up, and you're going to draw it back down, and you're going to have your 90 degrees inside there. We're going to just do it a lot nicer and a lot neater when you get to it. But you know that you've got a 90 degrees. Here's your 90 degrees here and across there. And you would also have a 90 degrees if you drew it down like this, over and back over like this, okay? So this angle here, inside this thing here, is going to be half of what this is here. And this one over here, would be half of what this is here. So that means that it's going to be 30 degrees that you're going to be working with, right? All right, so let's make this nice and neat. Okay, so what we're looking at is we know that if we're splitting this in half, we're going to come to the midsection here. We're going to come to the middle of this thing. We're going to take this 950 thousandths, and we're going to divide it into two. That's how we got that, because 475 thousandths from here to here, and 475 thousandths from here to here will equal 950. And then we bring up our good friends, our trig functions, and again, we look at, oh hell, another hour of arithmetic. Now, how do you know which order these things are in? Well, they're in the order that your calculator is at. So reading from left to right, the sine is the first one, the cosine is the second one. By the way, it only says COS on your calculator. And then tan. Tangent means, tan means tangent, okay? Again, oh hell, another hour of arithmetic. Now we just want to go and we want to match things up. Okay, so that might be a little bit different than it was before, but it's not a big deal. Let's take a look at how we're going to do that. So, to do that, here's what we do. We've got this right angle triangle here, right? Well, and Ken said that all you have to do is take the sides that you have, or the information that you have, and work it from there. So, what do we have? Well, we have this side that's the opposite side. We know that for sure. That 475 thousandths, we know that's opposite because it's opposite this 30 degrees. And we have this leg right here, but dang, I don't know what this leg is, other than that I do know that it is an adjacent side, right? So what does that information tell me? That tells me that if this is the opposite side, and this is the adjacent side, I have to use the functions that are going to be opposite and adjacent. Well, that would be this one right here, right? These are opposite and adjacent. Well, we've got a little bit of a problem here. I know what the opposite side is, but I don't know what the adjacent side is. But I do know what the tangent of 30 degrees is, or at least I know that I've got 30 degrees, and I'm going to find the tangent for it. So let's use this function, kind of, but not quite. There's another set of functions that I didn't go over very well yet, and maybe we're just starting to learn it. And that's a secondary group of functions, which means the cosine, the cosecant, and the cotangent. Okay? So, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these things over, and I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to create a whole nother series of functions that you're going to use. So, we have the hypotenuse that was on the bottom over here, it's now on the top, and the opposite that was on the top over here, it's now on the bottom. That's the cosecant. By the way, these can be found on page 168 of your book. You can also find it if you just go on your web and use your web browser and you look for trig functions, trigonometry functions. It'll give you this whole piece over here as well. Okay? So the next one that you have here is the hypotenuse was on the bottom over here, the hypotenuse. Now it's got to be at the top, because remember, these are going to be the 1x functions. All of these are going to be 1x functions. So we would use it just, and don't panic, okay? Take your time on this. Don't panic. I know this is a lot, but the bottom line is this. You're going to use these things just as you would over here, except you're going to hit the 1x key. It's a new key, I know that, but what it does is it converts this to this. It converts this, the cosine, to the secant. It converts the tangent to the cotangent when you hit the 1x key. All right, so let's just keep going from there. All right, so this one here, the one that's on the top, is now going to be on the bottom, and the one that's on the bottom is going to be on the top. So that's what the 1x means. All right, so now let's take a look at this. Which of these do I have? Well, here's what you always want to do. The one on the top is the one that you're looking for. The one on the bottom is the one that you have. Remember that saying. Kind of like, pretend like you're going to the beach, all right? And if you're going to the beach, so with that analogy, it means this. I'm a guy. When I go to the beach, of course I'm going to look at the thing that's on the top for when I look at a girl, right? And the thing that's on the top is what? Of course, it's her eyes. I hope you're not thinking of something else. Okay? And women, well, I think, or at least I've been told, they look for what's on the bottom of a guy. Well, what would that be? The guy's mouth, of course, right? How well does he kiss? Or maybe it's something else, I'm not sure. But at any rate, you get the idea. So the one on the top is the one you're looking for. The one on the bottom is the one that you have. So what do we have here? We have the opposite side, and we don't have the adjacent side, but we're looking for it, right? We do have an angle. So let's go ahead and figure out what we're doing. The one on the top is the one you're looking for. I'm looking for the adjacent side. What do I have? I have the opposite side. What am I going to use? I'm going to use the cotangent. The cotangent of what? The cotangent of 30 degrees. That's simple enough. All you have to do is go into your calculator, type in 30, press your tangent key, and I told you this is not that hard, and then press your 1x key. All right? That'll give you your cotangent. If you were just looking for the tangent of an angle, here you would hit 30 and then the tangent key, right? Well, we're not looking for these angles, these functions here. We're looking for these. We're looking for the ones that are inverted, the ones that are flipped, because I didn't have the one on the top that I'm looking for and the one on the bottom, the one that I have. Remember, I went to the beach. All right, I hope you remember that. I hope that analogy was a good way to help you remember. If it's not, sorry, figure out your own way. All right, so anyhow, let's move forward here on this thing. So we plugged in 30. We plugged in tangent. We hit tangent, and then we hit the 1x key. When you do that, you're going to get 1.732 thousandths. All right, so what does that mean? Put that over here. 1.732. What's your opposite side? The opposite side is 450 thousandths, right? That's what you get. All right, now this says division on this side over here, right? Doesn't it? Anytime you have a number or a function over another function with a line over it, that means division. So what we want to do is we want to take this and we want to move this to this side of the equal sign. When you take this and you move this to this side of the equal sign, let's get rid of this. When you move that to this side of the equal sign, you have to do opposite of what you had over here. What you had over here is you had the division. You had division. You bring it to this side of the equal sign. That means you have to use multiplication. So take 1 inch, 732 thousandths, and multiply it times 450 thousandths. What do you get? Remember, we had division on the other side. We're going with multiplication on this side. Okay, so that's 450. Okay, made a little boo-boo there. It's not 450, it was 475 thousandths. Remember, we're using this. We're using the opposite side. I made a boo-boo and I said 450. It's not 450, it's 475. Probably confused you some, but that's what it's going to be. So we're going to take 1 inch, 732, and get rid of that 452. That should be 475 thousandths. So you guys were probably really confused there for a while. That's my error. I should have realized what I was doing, but that's what you got. It's 475 thousandths, okay? So 475 thousandths times 1.732 thousandths equals 8227, okay? 475 times 1 inch, 732 equals 822 7/10. And that is that answer there. Sorry about this error here. I hope I didn't confuse you too bad. I hope that you realize that I was supposed to be using the 475 thousandths, and that's how you come up with this answer. So you always want to make sure that you transfer numbers correctly. I mean, simple mistakes like that are often what happens to us when we're doing math problems. So always check your numbers. That's something that you want to do. Okay, we're going to take a look at the next one, and we'll give that one a go. Okay, so the next problem. When we look at this, well, what do we have to again go for what we know. We know that we've got we have one dimension right here of 500 thousandths. We know we have 60 degrees inclusive. That means this is going to be 30 degrees over here. All right. We're going to look for that. We're going to look for, sorry about that. Make that a little bit better there. We're going to look for a right angle triangle, which is what we have here, and we have over here. We've got 30 down here. If we had 60 total, that means we have 30 here, and we have 30 here. And what I've done is I've just projected this out. I've projected this out over here, and I'm going to solve for this and for this, because all I really have to do is solve for one of these right angle triangles, and when I solve for one of them, whatever this equals, this one's going to equal. So what do? We're going to go for what we know. I've already got the functions already set up over here. So what do we know? We know that we've got this surface from here to here. Remember, if this was the 500 thousandths, it would be over here like this. It would be at an angle like that. It's not. That's not what it is. This is straight across on this thing. It's straight across here. So if it's straight across, that's the 500 thousandths. Now, what is that? What side is that? It's the adjacent side. Why is it the adjacent side? It's the adjacent side because it's directly next to the given angle. Okay? It's next to the angle that you're looking for. When I say next to the angle that you're looking for, this is the angle we're looking for. That makes this adjacent. Try to think of adjacent housing. Adjacent housing means houses that are next to each other. When I was a kid, we called it the projects, but today they call it the adjacent housing, okay? And yes, I did live in the projects. All right, so that's 30 degrees there. And what does that make this side over here? Well, if this is the angle that we're given, that makes that the opposite side. So we have two functions here. We have an adjacent side and, well, get these pens to work right. And we have an opposite side. So which one of these are going to match? All right, let's take a look and let's do the matchup here. Opposite. Okay, there's an opposite there. There's an opposite there. H. Hypotenuse. Nope, don't have the hypotenuse. Sorry about that. Remember, oh, hell, another hour of arithmetic. Oh, hell, another hour of arithmetic. Sine, cosine, tangent, just the way that it's set up on your calculator. Now, in high school or in grade school or in elementary school, they probably told you SOHCAHTOA and all that stuff. Problem was, I never paid much attention in grade school when the teacher said that, when they started talking about SOHCAHTOA, the Indian's name and all that stuff. And if you take this, you go SOHCOATOA, that means SOHCAHTOA. I could never remember the Indian's name. I always wanted to remember Geronimo, and it didn't work in here. So because it didn't work in here, I came up with my own version, which is, oh hell, another hour of arithmetic, which made a whole lot more sense to me than some Indian's name that I couldn't remember in the first place. So again, oh hell, another hour of arithmetic, sine, cosine, tangent. What do I have? I have an opposite side. Is that going to be it? Yep, there's an opposite side there. Do I have the hypotenuse side? Nope, that's the hypotenuse side. Okay, so over here, do I have an adjacent side? Yeah, I have an adjacent side. That's the 500 thousandths over here. That's the adjacent side. Up, they've got a hypotenuse here. That's not going to work either. So that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I hope this one works. That's my last chance, and of course it will. The opposite side, right there. The adjacent side, right there. What is the opposite side? Well, let's write down that number. I don't know what it is. Oh, no, not again. I don't know what this is, but I know that's going to be one of the functions that I'm going to be working with. I'm looking for the opposite side. Remember, the one on the top is the one you're looking for. The one on the bottom is the one that you have. Go to the beach. Okay? This is going to be the tangent. All right, so let's put everything together here. Because I want to try to figure out what I have. So go for what you know. I'm going to set this up just like I would normally in any problem. I'm going to write down what I know. I know that I've got 500 thousandths for this adjacent side, right? And I don't know, so I'm going to put a little parentheses around this just so that you know that that goes with that. I don't know what this is, but that's what I'm looking for. Tangent. Tangent of what? The tangent of 30 degrees. Okay, so let's put that number in there. Tangent of 30 degrees. All right, so I don't know what the tangent of 30 degrees is, but if I plug in 30 in my calculator and then press the tangent key, that'll tell me what it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to get 577 3/10. So this here is division. I can't do division over here. I don't have division going on here. I mean, if I knew what this number is here, I could divide it into that, right? But I don't. Remember, anytime you have a number or a function over a line, that means division. So what I have to do is take this and bring this to this side of the equal sign. And I have to do opposite of division, which means multiplication. So I'm going to go times 500. That is the distance that I had for this adjacent side. And that's going to equal like 288 7/10, right? Try it. So what does that mean? That means that that's solved for that. Why? Because what I did is I left my opposite side all by itself, and I broke it down so that I have the tangent of the angle times the adjacent side. Okay? So the tangent times the adjacent side. This times this equals that. I had division here, brought this to this side of the equal sign. It is the tangent times the adjacent. The tangent of 30 degrees. You can't hit 30. You can't take 30. You got to do the tangent of 30. Not 30 degrees, the tangent of 30. The tangent of 30 is 577 3/10 times 500 thousandths. That's going to give me the 288 7/10. That's what this size is right here. So what are you going to do with that 288 7/10? What do you think? Write it in here. I know that that's going to be that distance there. I know that that's going to be that distance there. So if you take this and you subtract it from this, you're going to come up with the answer for what's left, right? Because you're taking this, you're subtracting it here. You're taking this and you're subtracting it here, and that gives you what's left. And your answer is going to be 1.322 6/10. Okay? Again, I took this side here, which is going to be the same as this side here, add them together, and subtract it from that. That gives you what's left over, and what's left over is a 1 inch 322 6/10. Okay? I hope you catch that. Hope you get it. Let's take a look at the last one. Okay, our last one. We have our functions up here again. Oh hell, another hour of arithmetic. Sines the first function on a calculator, cosines the second function on a calculator, tangents the third function on the calculator, moving from left to right just as we read. Okay? What do we have? Go for what you know. All right, so let's go ahead and figure this out. What we want to do is we want to find our 90 degrees. So if I took this and I drew this line straight across like this, brought it up, straight up, there's my 90 degrees there, so there's my angle. All right? Now, the deal with this is they're, again, looking for an inclusive angle. We can't solve for this figuring out an inclusive angle. That's impossible to do because there's not a 90 degrees in that. So we've got to come up with two angles and then add the two angles together to make the inclusive. Inclusive meaning including. to make it the inclusive angle. So what do we have? We have an adjacent side here. Okay, let's put in what we're looking for here. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for that angle. We're looking for this angle. Go for what you know. What do you know? I know that I've got this distance here. Well, I don't have it directly. I have it indirectly, though. So I know that I've got this because I'm going to take the 1 inch 789 thousandths and I'm going to subtract the 1 inch 568 thousandths from it. So this from this, and then I'm going to divide it into 2. Okay? So go ahead and do that. So what we have is 1.789 minus 1.568. Here's our 1.789. Okay, that's right here. 1.568. That's right there. Take this minus this. You're going to get 221 thousandths total difference between the two. And then you're going to divide them into 2, or divide it into 2. And you're going to get 1105, 0.1105. So we have 110 and 5/10 here. We have 110 and 5/10 here. So now what do you have? You have this opposite side. The opposite side is going to be 110 and 5/10. And you have the adjacent side. Remember, the one that's next to the angle is adjacent. The adjacent side is 62.5 thousand, or 625 thousandths, okay? So 110 is 110 and 5/10, and 625 are the two functions that we're working with. What this is this one's going to be the opposite side. The 625 thousandths is going to be the adjacent side. All right, so let's find the function that matches to that. Opposite and adjacent. Opposite side, yes indeed. Up, hypotenuse. That's not the one. Do I have an adjacent side? I do. The 625 thousandths is the adjacent side. But this is not at an angle like this. So this is not the 625 thousandths. Wrong. That's not 625 thousandths. 625 thousandths is straight across. So it's not going to be this one. It's not going to be the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So guess what? It's going to be the tangent again. It's going to be the opposite and the adjacent. So let's just plug those in. By plugging them in, let's put the numbers in there. So when you do that, and you take this 1105 divided by 625, you're going to get 176 and 8/10. Then you're going to want to hit your invert key, INV. Sorry about this, I'm writing this with the mouse, so it's not easy to always write this stuff. And then hit your tangent key. Why? Because what you're doing is you're telling your calculator that, okay, I know that this is the decimal equivalent, but I don't want the decimal equivalent. I want you to invert this to be the actual tangent, the degrees, the minutes, and the seconds. And you're going to come up with something. You'll see something on your calculator that says this, 10 point, what would it be? Somewhere around like 26 thousandths, something like that. And that's not 26 thousandths, that's degrees, decimal degrees. So I think it's going to be 10.0268, something like that, just off the top of my head. All right, now what you want to do is that's what this is over here on just this one angle. You only found the one angle. You got to have both of them. This is an inclusive. They're looking for an inclusive answer here. So you got to multiply that times 2. When you multiply it times 2, you're going to get 20.0525 degrees, decimal degrees. Remember, you always, always, always have to multiply this when it's in its degrees, decimal degree form. You can't convert this to degrees, minutes, and seconds and then multiply it. In other words, if you figured this out to be 10 degrees, this is not going to be the right answer, but I'm going to write this down just so that you can kind of see what I mean. If you get this to be 10 degrees, 36 minutes, and 22 seconds, you can't multiply that times 2 because, first of all, you know there's only 60 minutes in every degree. So if you had this and you multiplied that times 2, you'd come up with 72, right? Well, you can't have 72 minutes. You can only have 60 minutes. So you have to make sure that you always, always, always multiply it or do anything that you're going to do in its decimal form, and then at the very end, that's when you convert it to degrees, minutes and seconds. So that's not the right answer. Your right answer for this whole thing, when you convert this to, you're going to go from DD. Now you're going to find your key that says DD. Sorry, that looks like a P. That should be a D. DD dash DMS. Why? Decimal degrees to degrees, minutes, and seconds. When you do that, you're going to come up with an answer, inclusive answer of 22 degrees, about 3 minutes, and about 9 seconds. And don't worry if you're off just a little bit. All right. Also, don't worry if you don't quite get this right from the start, right from the get-go. We have several more that we're going to do, and I hope that this brought clarity to some of it and you kind of understand it. Don't panic. Don't worry if you don't understand it. Not a big deal. We got lots more of these that we're going to do together. So we'll see you on the next one. I know this was a long video. Thanks for staying with me on it. Sorry about that one mistake on the second one where I put the 450 instead of 475 thousandths. That sometimes happens. I mean, you're doing these things. I'm doing these things straight up for you. Nothing's prepped before, so I just go in there and go at it so that I can see the same problems that you see. Have a great day, and thanks for training with me. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.